What if your deepest desires aren't actually yours? What if the life you're chasing, the job, the partner, the status, isn't a choice, but an imitation? We live under the illusion of originality, that we are unique thinkers, carving unique paths. But there's something far older, far deeper, quietly scripting our every move, a hidden gravitational pull that shapes what we want, who we admire, what we fear losing. This force is mimetic desire, and it changes everything. René Girard didn't just propose a theory. He uncovered a mechanism, a kind of spiritual physics, a truth hiding in plain sight, nestled inside literature, myth, even the Bible. It was so fundamental, so encompassing, that once you see it, the world rearranges itself around the insight. We don't desire in isolation. We copy. We mimic those around us. Their aspirations become our own, not through conscious choice, but through a silent, recursive feedback loop. And yet, we convince ourselves it was always ours, that we've chosen our path freely. But here's the quiet tragedy. If your wants aren't truly yours, then neither is your future. You're not building a life. You're following a pre-written script, mistaking proximity for purpose. Look around. Our society doesn't reward originality. It rewards visibility. What's trending, what's seen, what's celebrated. We live in a social architecture of imitation, where value is determined by attention, and attention is determined by imitation. The more people who want it, the more it must be worth wanting, right? But what if that loop is a lie? What if the visible world, the one we chase, perform for, optimize within, is actually the smallest part of what's truly possible? The irony is unbearable. The visible feels vast, but it's only a hallway of mirrors, a closed circuit. Desire bouncing between peers, friends, rivals, echoing louder each time, but never breaking out. And this is the trap. Not that we mimic, but that we believe we don't. If we are born mimetic, then liberation doesn't start with rebellion. It begins with recognition. Freedom is the act of turning your gaze away from the glittering proximity of others and daring to fix your eyes on the unseen horizon. That place where desire is no longer borrowed, but born. If desire is copied, then so is ambition. And if ambition is copied, then the world begins to shrink. Not physically, but in our minds, in our eyes, in our maps of meaning. We start to believe the visible world, the one others are chasing, is the only world that exists. And this is the true cost of imitation. It collapses the horizon. We confuse familiarity with reality. We think the jobs we see on LinkedIn, the lifestyles on Instagram, the startup archetypes in tech are all there is. But these are just signals bouncing around a closed loop. The same ideas, echoed and reflected, repeated until they feel eternal. This is the illusion of saturation, that all possibilities have been explored, that all good ideas are taken, that you are too late, but you're not too late. You're too close to others, too entangled in their wants, too caught in their feedback. What Girard shows us is this. We don't perceive opportunity objectively. We perceive it socially. We want what others want, so we see what others see. And if everyone else is doing the same, then we are all, collectively, ignoring the vast unknown. There are entire galaxies of ideas, careers, callings, creations that no one is exploring, not because they aren't real, but because they aren't yet desired. And if no one desires them, no one validates them. And if no one validates them, we assume they're worthless. This is the paradox. The most valuable spaces are often the least populated. The most original paths look like mistakes. The most meaningful lives feel invisible until they're not. We think we're living in a world of infinite options, but in truth, we're just running laps in a very well-lit cage. In a mimetic world, what is seen is what is wanted, and what is wanted becomes expensive, not just in price, but in cost, energy, identity, soul. We think visibility signals value. If everyone wants it, it must be good. But this logic only works inside the mimetic loop. Outside it, it collapses. Because the truth is this: visibility isn't a sign of worth. It's a sign of saturation. By the time a desire becomes visible, it has already been copied. By the time a career path becomes popular, it's already over-optimized. By the time a market becomes trendy, its margins are dead. What you see is already being consumed. And when you compete for visible things, you're not innovating, you're imitating. You're entering a game that's already filled with players, fighting over scraps, mistaking competition for purpose. We confuse scarcity with value. We think if something is rare, it must be precious. But Girard flips this on its head. Sometimes scarcity signals danger. Sometimes the fight itself creates the illusion of value. The rival wants it, so I must want it. And the more we want it, the more we fight, until the fight becomes the meaning, and we lose ourselves in the heat of imitation. This is the dark side of mimetic rivalry. Desire escalates until destruction becomes inevitable. Friend becomes rival. Rival becomes enemy. All over something that may have had no inherent worth to begin with. So ask yourself, is what you're chasing truly valuable? Or is it just visible? Is the scarcity a signal of quality or a warning of war? In a mimetic economy, what's scarce isn't value. It's peace. It's originality. It's non-rivalrous creation. If you keep chasing what everyone else sees, you'll spend your life competing for illusions. But if you learn to see the invisible, you might just find something no one else can steal. There is one force that breaks the mimetic loop, one act that cannot be copied without becoming something else entirely: creation. Creation is the moment when desire stops echoing and starts originating. It's the rupture in the feedback loop, the 0 to 1 leap that cannot be gamed, scaled, or imitated. Carl Jung saw this as individuation, the becoming of the self, a process not of self-expression, but of self-revelation, not the projection of a curated identity, but the emergence of something deeper, truer, and often terrifying. To create, you must walk into that terror, because creation is lonely. It demands separation. It requires you to turn away from the crowd, to silence the need for approval, and to begin forging a path with no map. In Dostoevsky's world, this was the burden of free will. To choose what is right, not because it is praised, but because it is good, even when no one else sees it, even when it costs everything. That is the task of the creator: to give birth to what has no precedent, to bring forth what cannot be traced to a model, to choose suffering over imitation, because only in suffering can truth be forged. This is what it means to live outside the mimetic economy, not to reject desire, but to refine it, to aim it at the invisible, the eternal, the sacred. Creation is dangerous because it destroys the cycle. It ends the rivalry. It introduces asymmetry, something new, something impossible to copy. And in a world of mimicry, that is the greatest threat and the highest calling: to build from within, to speak from silence, to step beyond the known and become the origin of something real. When you do that, you aren't just making art. You are declaring war on the imitation that enslaves the world. You cannot escape the mimetic engine by rebellion alone. You must redirect your attention. Mimetic desire feeds on vision, on where we fix our gaze. And as long as your eyes are locked on others, you will desire what they desire. But the moment you look away, the spell begins to break. This is not just philosophy, it's spiritual warfare, because what you see, you begin to want. And what you want, you begin to become. If you keep your eyes on rivals, you become a rival. If you fix your gaze on models, you become a modeler. But if you turn your eyes toward the unseen, toward God, toward the source of truth, you begin to become yourself. This is what the mystics understood, that the world of appearances is not the world of meaning, that the crowd is not the compass, that truth is often found not in echo chambers, but in silence, not in applause, but in stillness. To turn your eyes is not to look away in fear, but to look deeper in faith, to believe that the unseen is not empty, but infinite. In engineering, we call this a shift in frame of reference. In psychology, it's detachment. In spiritual terms, it's transcendence. Jung believed that transformation only begins when you confront the shadow, not someone else's, but your own. And you can't see your own shadow if your eyes are always on others. This is not a call to narcissism. It's a call to awakening, to strip away the borrowed layers of ambition and fear and ask, what calls to me that no one else sees? Everything in the mimetic world tells you to look sideways, but the truth, your truth, is vertical. It descends from above, not across. You will be tempted to compete, to chase what others chase, to win battles that were never yours to begin with. But that path leads only to rivalry, exhaustion, and spiritual poverty. The call to the Creator is not a call to fame. It is a call to faith. Faith that what is unseen is not empty. Faith that your desire can be healed. Faith that your work, your true work, has value beyond measure, even if no one sees it yet. The world needs a creator, someone bold enough to look where no one else is looking, to find what no one else sees, to speak what no one else dares to say. That someone might be you.